minds, not castles, are haunted. Happy Samhain heathens! It's finally Halloween. It is finally the Witch's New Year, so thank you for joining me today. I thought I would put on my hat and my jumper, but actually it's really warm today, which is unseasonable. Also, we have my friend the pumpkin. Say hello. He changes colour, but it's a bit bright at the moment for him, so we'll save him for later. So today, I thought appropriately enough, I would do my video, my kind of a bit of a wrap-up video of some of the haunted house novels that I have read over the last month. I kind of went down a haunted house / haunted hotel, let's say haunted structure, kind of just an absolute deep dive into loads of books in that sort of genre. And I'm here to tell you the good, the bad and the ugly. So I've also kind of in doing this, slight side tangent, but also side effect, discovered what I really like in books. So I've always loved the Gothic. The Gothic is my thing. I will do a whole video on the Gothic novel and what the actual themes are within Gothic novels, because I think the word Gothic gets slapped on a lot of things these days, just if the cover's black or there's a vampire in it, and that ain't Gothic. So again, one of my favourite tropes for haunted houses, because the haunted houses, castles, mansions, very big trope in the Gothic, is something like Mexican Gothic. So can I draw your attention to the left over here to this gorgeous book? I'm still very pleased with getting this kind of cover for Mexican Gothic. So I love that kind of slow creep. Is it haunted? Is it not haunted? What's around the corner? Where it's not that explicit, where it's more of that kind of Gothic haunting. So kind of keep that in mind as I'm going through that, because that's my personal taste. But okay, where do we start? Where do we even start? Let's start with these ones. So I have slightly grouped these because I thought that would make sense in my own head. So these three are kind of holiday hauntings and also family drama hauntings. So we have got Dear Vola by Jennifer Thorne. We have got The House of Last Resort by Christopher Golden. And we have got Sisters by Daisy Johnson. So let's start with Dear Vola. So Dear Vola is, first of all, fabulous. I enjoyed this. So this is about a family going on holiday. They're doing the family holiday to Italy. And they've hired this kind of villa, beautiful Italian crumbling villa, for the week or weekend, or however long they're there. And immediately the person driving them, the sort of Uber driver, goes, "Where are you going?" Oh, yeah. Oh dear. You get the impression that the locals think there's something funky going on with this house. But this book also is very much a family drama. So there's a lot of drama within this family. One of the daughters kind of gets blamed for anything that goes wrong within the family. And there's a lot of this family tension. So you kind of have this creeping, none of these people are particularly nice, which again is very much a Gothic thing. There's sort of underlying tension, and then they're at this house and sort of small things start to happen. There's a really creepy scene with possessed kids, and it sort of starts to build and develop. And what I love about this as well is you think it's over when they leave. Oh no. And that's actually a theme in one of the other books that I'll be discussing later. So I really love this because it's set in Italy. It's probably more of a summer read, but it is just fabulous. And what a cover. What a cover. Then another book set in Italy. So this is set in Sicily, and this is The House of Last Resort by Christopher Golden. This is fantastic. So it's the same, well, not the same. It's also that kind of thing where when they tell, so you've got a couple from the States, and they have bought this beautiful, crumbling Italian villa in Sicily for €1. Now, if you're familiar with what the European countries were doing, there's a lot of these towns that the younger people, this is a real thing, by the way, where the sort of the younger generation is leaving to go to live in the big cities because there's no opportunities there, there's no jobs, they're like in the middle of nowhere, why would they want to live there? So a lot of these towns, like the mayors in the towns, have been trying to revitalize them, and they were selling these houses really cheap, sometimes for €1, with the caveat that you would spend a certain amount of money to restore it and that you would live in this house, and kind of basically they're trying to revitalize these towns. So this is what this couple does. He is actually from this area in Sicily, and his family is still there. And the scene where his mother comes to visit them, and she's like, "You've bought what?" And whoa, Italian Mama Wrath. I tell you, you don't want to cross them. She is not happy. She goes off on one, and she's like, everybody's like, you bought what house now? Yeah, it was a mistake. That was a mistake. It's also, there's an aspect of like the church, what this house was previously used for. This has that creeping sense, and then it goes a bit bonkers in the end. I will also say, if you have a rodent issue, I like rodents. If you don't like rodents, yeah, there's a lot of rats in this, so you proceed with caution for any rodent phobics. Then the third one, I won't go into this too much because it's in one of my reading vlogs, so you can kind of see my real thoughts there, or my more detailed thoughts. But this is Daisy Johnson's Sisters, and this is primarily about this relationship between these two sisters and kind of the family relationship. But again, it's the mother takes the two sisters to this house because something happened where they're from, and it's a family home. There's a lot of history involved with this house. One of the sisters was actually born there, and there's this constant kind of creep and like, is this house haunted? Isn't it? What's going on in it? The writing in this is very, very trippy. It's completely different to the other two books. I really enjoyed it. It's not an explicit haunted house, but it has that kind of feel to it. Then explicit haunted houses. Let's go with those. So these, oh yes. So Just Like Home, Sarah Gailey. Actually, on that, this is part of my series that I was doing. So if you haven't seen the video, it's a horror then and now. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a horror, like a vintage horror book, and a modern one with a similar tone and juxtaposing them. And this one I juxtaposed with The Hawkline Monster, which was apparently billed as a gothic western. This is one of the worst books I've ever had to subject myself to. I wanted to gouge my eyeballs out with a blunt spoon. And considering the size of it, I DNF'd this. I tapped out of it. Oh, it's awful. That one here was fantastic. So then there's the second book we have in more explicit haunted houses is Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. I'm currently reading this. I'm kind of there in the book. So I'm 2/3 of the way through because these are my Halloween reads. There's another one coming up, but this is one of my Halloween reads. Having a great time. Then we've got Hell House, and this is by Richard Matheson, and this was the one that was described as the scariest haunted house ever written by Stephen King. I don't know if I agree with that, but I'll tell you my thoughts in a second. And then we've got The Spite House by Johnny Compton. We'll start with this one because I've got it in my hands. This is so good. I want to absolutely read Johnny Compton's new novel that has just come out after reading this. So this is the story of Eric and his two daughters, and they are on the run, and you don't know why they're on the run. In the beginning of the book, you obviously find out as you go through, but you don't know why. And his youngest daughter, there's something a bit strange about her. So you as they're on the run and they're trying to hide, essentially, they need money. And he finds this advert saying, there's this house called the Spite House, and we will pay you a shed load of money to basically live in this house for a bit. And he's just like, okay, what is this all about? And he meets this a wealthy elderly lady whose family owns this Spite House, and again, lots of history, lots of secrets and lies, very much in the gothic vein, very unlikable people. And she says, yeah, just go live in this house, and it's haunted, or it's not. Could you go in there and just record anything that happens to you in the house? And he's like, okay. But is it like safe for my daughters? Totally. Come, yes, be fine. Do you think it's going to be fine? And it goes from there. This is absolutely fantastic. Again, there's a lot of kind of the family drama. There's the sort of supernatural. It's just the way the house is sentient and reacts, and then when you kind of get the whole past of it and the past of both families, and again it goes off at the end. It's great. I absolutely loved it. This was absolutely a 4.5 star read for me, maybe even 5 stars. It's very, very good. Then the next one, Hell House by Richard Matheson. This, I don't know if it's the scariest one I've read, but I did enjoy myself. So this is about the Bosco house. So side note, I would love a prequel of all the shit that went down in the Bosco house, because this Bosco house is known as completely and utterly haunted, one of the most evil spaces in the world, because of the stuff that went down in this house. And God, there was depravity and violence, and it was, whoa, sounded like a good time. No. What I would say is, I'm not a trigger warning person. I have triggers, but I am a confront them kind of person, so I don't ever look at triggers. I just kind of go into books. There's probably quite a lot here, so you may want to check that. But anyway, so this Bosco house, lots of shit went down, totally haunted apparently. So then there's been people, like parties, that have gone into this house to investigate it, and only one person has ever come back alive. So a new party goes in, because that's what you do. I think it's in the 70s. And you've got, what I like about this is these people that go in, you've got one guy who is a scientist who, you know, they're being paid by this rich person to investigate it, a bit like Spite House, but he doesn't believe in the paranormal. He's like, it's energy, and he's got this weird machine that he's built, and he's going to dissipate the energy. And then you've got a woman that goes in who is very much like, woo-woo, I'm a medium, the spirits are talking to me, that kind of thing. And then you have the one guy that was the only one that survived, and then the wife of the scientist. So I like the discussion between sort of the esoteric versus the scientific, and what is actually going on here, and their differing opinions. And there is a lot of creepy stuff that happens. There's a lot of creepy stuff that happens as with, of course, they do a seance, because that's what you do in this kind of house. I thought it was fantastic. I wasn't, now, again, probably disclaimer, it takes a hell of a lot to actually scare me. And I personally find the more kind of creepy, unsettling, like the sublime that's used in Gothic, I find that more unsettling if I don't know what's behind the door and I have left to use my imagination than if you tell me what is behind the door. But I did absolutely, again, this is a 4-star read. Had a great time reading this. Tons of fun. And then speaking of tons of fun and great time, this is Kill Creek. So like I said, I'm about 2/3 of the way through this, because I'm going to finish the rest tonight. It is about this house on Kill Creek. And again, this is notoriously a haunted house. So very similar to the setup for Hell House. And you have this kind of influencer, internet millionaire. He's got his money from daddy, and he does, you know, basically YouTube videos, and he gets these 4 horror writers, famous horror novel writers, together, and he pays them each, and he says, I want to do an interview with you. And when they all get there, like, hang on, wait, there's 4 of us here, what's going on? And he's like, I want to take all 4 of you to this house at Kill Creek, and we're going to do this interview. I'm going to interview you about your writing and about your books on Halloween in this supposedly haunted house. So that sounds like it's going to be a good time. So that does happen. And what I love about this is I was reading an interview with Scott Thomas where he said the writers, the 4 writers, are actually based on real life horror writers, and he mentions who they are, and it's quite fun. You can work it out yourself, but it's a lot of fun. I like the characters in this. I like Moore, who is the female character. Now, I know that is going to be a massively controversial opinion, because I know a lot of people talk shit about this book. They don't like it. I love a tough woman. I love the fact that Moore bodybuilds, and as an avid bodybuilder myself, it's not something you read much with female characters in books. They're usually sort of delicate, you know, very thin, delicate little things, and I love that about her. So anyway, that's a complete aside, but so there's that. But then a bit like with Diavola, I didn't realize this, but there's that bit, and then there's something else. So there's a before and an after. And I'm at that bit now, and it's really interesting. So I'm really enjoying this book. Yeah. Then this one, Just Like Home, Sarah Gailey. This is 5 stars. I still think about this book. I was obsessed by it. So the premise here is we've got our main character, Vera. I'm trying to remember what her name is. I'm terrible with character names, sorry. So we have Vera. She is coming back home because her mother is dying. And she's coming back to this house. And there's a lot of family history here, because her father has died, but he was in jail for being a serial killer. And this went down in the house. And there's also this, her mother is awful, but her mother also then invited all of these artists to come and sort of live in the house and immerse themselves in like the serial killer house. So there's that aspect to it, and there's this like artist living there with them. And she kind of, this house is sentient in the best way and kind of haunted in the best way. And but also this is back to the quote I did at the beginning that said minds are haunted and not castles, because a lot of this has to do with the family and obviously what happened. You can imagine the ramifications of that, and you learn the family history and you learn what happened and the relationship and the relationships within this, and it's so good. It's a bit of a different take on it, and it's interesting, and I absolutely love this. I don't want to give too much away of it, but I would highly recommend reading this. I just love this book. So interesting. And again, there's probably quite a few trigger warnings, but it's just it's so good, combining that sort of family and haunting in your mind with this kind of haunted house metaphor story. So then, where do we go? Let's do some haunted hotels. So any chance I get to plug Simone St. James's Sundown Motel, I will do. This is a story about a girl who goes back to she's trying to find out what happened to her aunt in the 80s. And her aunt disappeared at this Sundown Motel. It's the last place she worked and the last place she was seen. She gets a job here. This is fantastic. The mystery thriller element of it is fantastic, but also this hotel. Ooh. It's not a place you want to spend the night, but I love this. This is one of my favorite writers, one of my favorite books, so any opportunity to plug it. Then Daisy Johnson. So we've got The Hotel by Daisy Johnson. Again, this was in my vlog. And this is actually a series of short stories, and I am not really a short story person, but what was great about this was the first short story actually talked about the hotel and kind of set you up for this creepy hotel, which was built on the site of a witch who was killed, or a woman who was killed for being a witch, and she was drowned. Great place to build a hotel. No one's ever going to be haunted in those rooms. And then these stories are kind of interconnected to characters in the previous stories as well, which is really, really cool. So I love this premise. I thought this was fantastic. And then this is so much fun. So this is kind of haunted hotel adjacent, but I just want to talk about this. This is the Hitchcock Hotel. And this is just a fun mystery thriller. So you have Alfred, who has been a lifelong Hitchcock fan, loves Hitchcock, and he opens this hotel that is based on Hitchcock and his films. So that is an incredible premise, and I so want to go stay at this hotel. But he then invites his university friends to stay for the weekend, who, secrets and lies, all sorts of things apparently went down while they were at university. It unravels and you find out. And also he might have some nefarious things in mind. And it's a fun ride. There's sort of elements of haunting in this as well, and just the whole atmosphere of the Hitchcock Hotel. So good. Right, where are we going to go next? So let's go to books that include, as I would call it, kind of humour in them, so dark humour. And the three books I have here is Grady Hendrix' How to Sell a Haunted House. I've got T. Kingfisher's A House with Good Bones. And I have got The September House by Carissa Orlando. So one of these I DNF'd. I'm sorry. If you love it, you love it. It's just, I did not. So I tapped out it. I might go back, but 150. So the premise is that you've got a brother and a sister, and they inherit this house. Both of their parents die on the same night in a car accident, and they inherit this house. And there is a bit of kind of, the father actually left the house to the sister, and the mother left the house to the brother, so they're fighting. They're very unlikable. I did not enjoy the sniping and I found it really irritating. So that's probably what contributed to the fact that I didn't like this. But anyway, they've got this house, and the mother was really into art and into like creepy puppets. This house is filled with creepy puppets. So I think that's where the haunting is going to go. But I kind of tapped out because I was bored. I was just bored. The fighting between the brother and the sister. Also, every writing class that I've ever taken will tell you the first line, the first paragraph, the first chapter, really important. You got to capture that audience. You got to bring them in. You got to make them want to read the story. This is one of the worst first chapters I think I've ever read. It's basically about a woman who's pregnant is going baby clothes shopping. I'm like, wait, hang on. Is this like a baby clothing manual? What the hell? I literally almost put it down after the first chapter. I was like, what is this? Like, that is no way to start a book that's called How to Sell a Haunted House. I don't care what baby product she's buying. That is not why I'm reading this book. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. A book I did love was A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. I have had a bit of a rocky relationship with T. Kingfisher, but this one I loved. And again, I think that's slightly controversial because a lot of people don't like it, but this was so good. So this is like 4.5 stars for me. I really enjoyed it. So this one is about a woman who also, her job is really cool. She is like a bug archaeologist. So she goes on digs, like archaeological digs, but she deals with like the bug life involved in that. So again, if you don't like rats, don't read that one. If you don't like bugs, this has a lot of descriptions of bugs and a lot of descriptions of her work, which I actually found really interesting. So one of her digs has been postponed, so she kind of goes and stays with her mum for a bit, and things are a bit strange. Her mother's house has changed. In fact, it's quite like it was when her grandmother was alive. Suddenly her mother seems to be very religious. Also, there is a giant black vulture sitting on their mailbox just staring at the house. And you have a kind of a cool, creepy neighbour. And it just, I don't want to say more than that because you just kind of have to read it and it's so much fun. And again, this one pops off at the end. Things go wild at the end. But I thought this was so much fun. It was so much fun. I had a great time. And T. Kingfisher, what I do like about Grady, what I didn't actually mention the other one, what I do like about Grady Hendrix' writing is that kind of snarky, dark sense of humour. And I think T. Kingfisher does that same thing. She adds sort of humour into these kind of dark, gothic stories that she writes. But this is just so much fun. I had a blast with this. So I recommend that one. And then this one, this was unexpected. So there's a Damber House by Carissa Orlando. Again, this one has, I think it's humorous by its nature because it does, and I think that's one of the quotes on it, it does take the Haunted House novel and kind of turns it on its head, because normally you get that sort of build up and that creep and that is it haunted, what's going on. And honestly, that's what I like. I like that kind of this, just full on, page one, this house is haunted. There is blood running down the walls. There are ghosts making you tea. There are ghosts with their guts falling out in front of you. This is graphically haunted from page one. And it's basically about this elderly couple who retire and buy this house. And they move in and very quickly realize that this house is haunted. And in September, the house goes nuts, right? And the wife, and why I think this is kind of funny is because of the way the wife sort of is a bit like, well, you know, you deal with what you're given. You just, there's rules you follow. If there's a ghost in your kitchen making tea, you ask her for a cup of tea. If the walls are bleeding, you wash them down and start again tomorrow. You just kind of make the best of a situation. This is my house, I'm not leaving it. And I found that quite amusing. I find her attitude to it quite amusing. But the husband is like, hell no. After I think the second or the third year he leaves. And also where the story starts is where their daughter, who hasn't been to the house, kind of goes, where is dad? Like, he's not returning my calls. And she kind of then comes to visit her mother to figure out what happened to the father. And that's kind of also where you start getting the backstory and you start getting kind of the family drama that, again, is inherent in this book. And in a way, what's happening there and what happened in the past in this house is a bit of a metaphor with what's happening currently in the family. But yeah, this one just took me by surprise because, like I said, from literally the first line, it is graphic on-page haunting, and it was fun. But for me, again, that does not scare me in the least bit. Like, I was giggling all the way through it, like at these descriptions of, like I said, this ghost with their guts falling out, and the kind of the slow unknown is what will get me. But this is a hell of a fun ride. So again, a 4-star because it's not 100% my taste, but as a different take on it, it was fun. It's a fun read. Then let's go on to my favorites of the month. So wait, let me start here. So I have got A Haunting at Hill House, on the Hill, sorry, A Haunting on the Hill. And this is by Elizabeth Hand. And this is, again, part of that Horror Then and Now series. So this was juxtaposed with The Haunting of Hill House, the Shirley Jackson novel. This is actually the first sanctioned return to the world of Hill House, and it was glorious. It was absolutely glorious. Elizabeth Hand's writing is gorgeous. There is this real sense of unease, creep, the whole way through this novel. You know that Hill House is haunted. You know that it's, you know, and again, they bowl up to this house and someone's like, yeah, shouldn't stay there. It's a bad vibe. And of course they don't take the advice. And it's basically about this group of, so the main character, Holly, she is a playwright. She's written this play. She's gotten a grant to put on this play after many years of plugging, trying to get something on stage. And she kind of hires Hill House for a couple of days so that they can get together and kind of rehearse. And her girlfriend is she does a really cool thing. She sings, but she takes murder ballads and she sings them and she kind of rewrites them, and there's going to be murder ballads in this play. You've got an old actress who's trying to revive her career, and then you've got their friend who is also going to be in the play. And these people are all kind of staying at Hill House. There's a snowstorm. There's weird hares, massive black hares, as in the bunny, you know, the hares. There's this crazy lady with a knife that lives in a caravan down the road. And this kind of real, what's going on? Did I see what I thought I saw? Can I explain that? Just for me, the perfect sort of haunted house. I think it is a wonderful tribute to the original. The only thing that irritated me was the constant references to the pandemic in the beginning chapters, but that then stops, which was good. But I still think this is a 5-star read because I loved it. Then the next one in that kind of vein, this one did not work for me. So this is, it didn't really work for me, let's put it this way. This is Toll House by Carly Regan. And this is about a mother and son. They move into this old Toll House. And again, it's that typical Gothic sort of thing where you'll go, oh, there's a shadow. Did I really see it? Am I just stressed out? Her son is acting up. She keeps getting called in by the principal. And then you get her chapters, and then you get the chapters of the people that used to live in the house and what went down. And there's also, she meets this guy and there's something there. While I actually flew through this, I think I read this in a day really quickly. It wasn't my favorite. Just something about it, I did not connect with it somehow. But it is still a great example of that kind of creeping horror, family drama type of haunted house. So I did want to mention that. And then In the Lonely Hours, I have started this. This is my other Halloween read. I'm on page 95. Oh my God. I'm going to talk more about this because right now I'm in love. This is set in Scotland at Samhain, so proper Samhain. The descriptions of this countryside, this again, Gothic in the way that the setting, the country, the climate, the house, everything around it is actually a character within this book, and it is just fabulous. And I'm going to talk more about this when I finish reading it. And then on to my other favorites of the month. So wait for it. I'm going to quickly mention these two. They will be in a couple of other videos. Phantasma by Kaylee Smith, and then Runix' Gothicana. These are dark romantasy books, but in this one you have a very kind of creepy Gothic haunted, as the name may suggest, school that is a castle, but is also a school. And this is one of my favorite novels. And then Phantasma, which is a creepy haunted house that is run by devils that run a Caraval-esque game that you have to play within this haunted sentient mansion, and you may lose your life. Love it. So there's those two. And then Malice House by Megan Shepherd and Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. These are my two favorites, and I will tell you why. They combine everything that I love. The horror elements, the Gothic elements, the flawed characters, the tragic backstories, and the other thing that I adore, dark fairy tales. So, Alex E. Harrow's Starling House. This is just gorgeous. The writing, I am rereading this actually probably pretty soon just because I adored it. I fell in love with this book. This is about our main character, Opal. She's been looking after her brother for many years since their mother died. And she's kind of staying in this motel because her mother made a deal for them to stay there. And they're really hard up. She needs money. She takes a job as a cleaner at Starling House in this kind of town. Again, the small town vibe. Starling House is, everybody says it's haunted, it's evil. The current owner of Starling House, he is seen as weird. He's like, people are scared of him. He hardly ever leaves the house. You know, people tell her not to go there, and she does. And then what she discovers in this house and the journey she goes on. But also the other piece of this is that the first owner of the house, she wrote a book of fairy tales that Opal loves, and these kind of dark fairy tales. So there is a supernatural, fantastical fairy tale element of this. There is a beautiful, beautiful, heart-wrenching love story in this. There's also the love of her brother, so familial kind of love. There's this history of the town, like I said, these very flawed characters. There's kind of the mystery of what happened and how Starling House came to be. It is exquisite, and I highly recommend this book. The other one I highly recommend, and I've actually literally just bought the second book the minute I finished reading this one, is Malice House, and this is by Megan Shepherd. And it is that it then combines that fairy tale element. So this one, the main character, her father has just died. She's inherited Malice House. Again, he's a status kind of, he was a very, very famous author, very celebrated, but she's kind of left with no money. The only thing she's left with is Malice House. So she's kind of rummaging around in this house, and she finds a manuscript, handwritten, like nothing her father has ever written, but she recognizes his handwriting. And it's called Bedtime Stories for Monsters. These are not children's fairy tales. They are dark. They are very dark. And you get small excerpts of them throughout the book, which I love. And as she is an illustrator, she thinks, I'm going to make money, I'm going to get this published, but with my illustrations, so do like a father-daughter collaboration. And when she goes to sort of query this, she gets some really weird responses. And the way this kind of town reacts, again, secrets and lies, you find out what happened. There's a mysterious neighbor she meets. And this house, again, like Starling House, what I didn't say about Starling House is it's incredibly sentient. So you put if there's blood on your hand and you put it on the gate, it opens. Pillows shoot out from under the sofa when you need them. And Malice House also seems to have a bit of a sentience to it. And then also she hears things and sees things. So that's the haunted house element in here. But then also this kind of fantastical fairy tale-esque. This reminds me a little bit of The Hazelwood, which is one of my other all-time favorite reads. I adore this book. I cannot say how much I adore it, and it's going to be in many, many videos. And then I just thought, in the end, I'm just going to mention 2 other books that I love. Episode 13. This house is nuts at the end. It goes crazy. It is super do not want to be in this house. And it's a bit similar to House of Leaves, which I'm just going to mention here because I really enjoyed this, and I heard someone talking shit about this the other day, and I thought, yeah, why don't I just counter that argument by saying this is fantastic and weird, and I love weird, and actually elements of this remind me a little bit of this. So there are another 2 classic haunted houses if you're interested. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening. If you're still with me, comment a house down below. Let me know what your favorite haunted house novel is. I still have some more to read, so you'll be seeing some more. And happy Halloween and happy New Year to all the witches. I'll speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.